where...
Hello, we are live. Good afternoon, everybody. And James has picked an absolute classic. Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man, wealth and taste. I've been around for a long, long year. Stole many a man's soul and faith. I was around when Jesus Christ had a moment, died at pain. Made damn sure that Pilate washed his hands and sealed his fate. Pleased to meet you. Guess you hope my name. But what's puzzling you is the nature of my game. Woo-hoo! Woo-hoo! That's all we're doing because the show's about you, James, not about the song. But what an absolute classic song you've picked today. Thank you so much.
Oh, no, thank you. And thank you for adding the owl noises as well. I'm much appreciated.
I love that song. I love that song so much. I wish we did it in the band. So my first question to every single guest that I have on my show is, why did you pick that song?
I got two answers, actually. Back to front, I picked it partly because it was the only song that appeared twice on your list, and not once. So I thought that was a good omen, but it reminds me of working behind a bar when I was about 17, 18. And there was a guy that used to come in always at a quiet period and used to rescue me because it was always really boring, but he was really cool. And the playlist that he put on was always epic on the jukebox. But he would always, without fail, put Sympathy for the Devil on, and that whole sort of like owl hooting thing, it gets in your head. So there's just such a swagger to that tune. It's timeless. So yeah,
it is.
I had to have it.
No, great choice. Great story too. I'm just looking on my song sheet. I've actually put some notes here. It was their 10th album. Okay, and that was in 1968. Back then, the music scene, they were so prolific, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, how prolific is that? 1968, 10 albums. I mean, shit, that's a lot of work.
Yeah, I don't know how long they were going before that, but Ed Sheeran's been going, I don't know, 10, 12, 14 years, something like that, but he's only done 5 albums. They just take their time now. Interesting. Anyway, James, tell us a little bit about yourself, please, sir.
Well, I mean, what's there to know? I like wearing brightly coloured tablecloths. That's something that's important to know. But no, I'm a tax advisor, but I focus on the most narrow niche you can imagine because I'm a pensions tax advisor and I work solely with pension schemes that invest in property. So we're a niche within a niche within a niche.
Absolutely. That is really niching absolutely down. Yeah. So you don't advise on pensions and that, you advise on the actual tax implications of that.
Yeah, pensions as the taxpayer themselves.
Right, okay. So we're going to delve into that in a little bit, but I also want to get a little bit of... so Emma approves with your choice of song as well. I don't know if you know Emma, but thank you, Emma.
Oh, thanks, Emma.
LinkedIn. How long have you been on LinkedIn, James?
Too long. I think probably I got on LinkedIn in November 2006.
Wow, that was before the internet was invented, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't think I even shaved in 2006.
Oh, bless you. That's hilarious. That is absolutely hilarious. And so you enjoy using it. Do you use any other social media platforms?
Yeah, I use Facebook a bit, but I don't enjoy it that much. And Instagram is just a complete enigma to me.
And I think the thing is, they're all different. And you either get them all or you just focus on one. So LinkedIn is your favorite then?
Yeah, by a country mile.
And why? What is it you like about LinkedIn, James?
I think in general, just the standards a little bit higher in terms of what people post about. And I think if people do get to the point where they're expressing their displeasure, it doesn't quite rant as much in the same way as Facebook. And I don't think I've yet to see a picture of anyone's dinner yet either. So that's a win.
Oh, right. Well, I follow a guy called James Brooks, and he puts a few dinners out. So he's a TikTok guy for food brands and stuff like that. So if you follow him, you'll soon see some dinners. But I get what you mean. There's a lot of people sort of like put stuff out there, and then someone jumps on and goes, "This isn't Facebook." What's your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I think, do you know what? There is a distinction between the platforms, but at the end of the day, people have got personalities, and you either like someone's personality or not. You can choose to unfollow them.
Yeah.
I'm more bothered about things where there's actually some substance to a criticism. So yeah, unfollow, block. You've got the tools at your disposal.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you're probably too young to know who Mary Whitehouse is.
Yes, I'll go with that.
So you do know who Mary Whitehouse is?
I heard about, growing up, there was that Mary Whitehouse Experience TV program, wasn't
No. Mary Whitehouse was a campaigner for TV in the very early days when we had 3 channels. And so if someone put something on TV that wasn't quite right, she would kick off. And they used to be a program called Points of View on TV as well, and people would write in and say how rubbish this was or how it shouldn't be on and stuff like that. And it always confused me because every single TV, as far as I knew, had an on-off button, and they also had a button to change the channels. If you don't like something, turn it off. And I don't know why people don't do that with social media. But they sort of like, they jump on and they have, they share their opinions with gusto and goodness knows what else, and it can get a little bit sad. But you're quite right, it doesn't tend to happen so much on LinkedIn because I guess we're a bit more professional here, aren't we?
Well, sometimes.
Well, the thing is, I come to your profile, I see exactly what you do. I get an overall view of what you do. I know who you are. I know where you live. I've got your phone number and all of those contact details. The last thing you're going to do is start upsetting people, isn't it? So I think that's why it's such a lovely platform. And you get to make so many friends as well, don't you?
Yeah, you did tell me off for using Lenser, though, for my headshot.
Well, have you changed it?
Not yet. It's on the to-do list.
I think something like that, it starts masking who we really are. And I think people buy from people who they know, like, and trust. And we met each other for real the first time last week, didn't we, at Accountex? And you look totally different to your Lenser photo. In a good way. Thank you. So how often do you create your own content, James?
Do you know what? All the time. On LinkedIn, I sometimes go through phases where I'm posting a lot, and sometimes I'm posting very little. But most of the time, I've got my own stuff to say, and I've crafted it. Whether it's a slightly technical comment or whether it's something a little bit more lighthearted, it's all me. Good,
and I think that's the main thing, isn't it? It's all about being authentic and getting people who know you, like you, and trust you. We quickly talked about LinkedIn, or not LinkedIn, Accountex. I just mentioned it there. That's where we bumped into each other. What did you think of it this year?
Do you know what? Accountex is just insane, and it makes the property investor shows just look amateur. Like, I walked through the door, I was just sort of like, wow. You go to some of the property investor shows, and yeah, you've got 1 or 2 decent sized stands where people have really pushed the boat out, but there were some real flagships in there, and I've got to say, Hammock looked pretty impressive. You were close to Hammock. I've known those guys for quite a while, and if I'm judging by the size of the stands that I've seen at various shows over the years, and if that's proportionate to their business, fair play to them. I'm just disappointed that Sage wouldn't give me a rugby shirt, but next year maybe.
It's who you know, isn't it? I didn't get a rugby shirt either, I'm afraid. But yeah, it was some very impressive stands. So you actually go to property investor shows as well, do you?
Yeah, I've got one on Wednesday. I'm sort of being in sort of tax. I'm kind of at that intersection really, where Accountex is of interest because a lot of accountants there, but perhaps don't. I know they don't do the work that we do, but also the work we do is based on property investment. So we've got there's almost like 2 parallel professional networks that I'm maintaining there.
Yeah, and so being at the do you exhibit at any of these shows?
No, but we should do. But again, it's one of those things that when you are overrun with new clients coming through the door, getting new clients doesn't always feature highly on your list of priorities. So I will put it in the business plan to do it one year.
But this is the thing, right? we talk about niching, and people say, "Oh, you really should niche. You really should niche." And then other people are going, "Oh no, I like to do everything. I like to be everyone's friend." But because you're absolutely, like you say, niche within a niche within a niche, then you are the specialist, the pension property specialist. And so if there's anything property and pension related, then it has to be James, doesn't it? And that's what happened. So you're all right for clients. You don't need to do any marketing. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not quite saying that, but it's just hard to, it's hard to sort of think to yourself, okay, well, I'll sit down, I'll plan this stand and I'll do that when, you're dealing with inbound inquiries all the time. I mean, the biggest challenge for us is actually the fact that a lot of people don't even realize that what we do can be done. And so you've got people that don't even look for what we do. And so they don't necessarily even realize that people operate in the pensions tax space. And so when, let's say, accountants or other professionals realize that we can deal with some problems that they didn't even know existed anymore, they get quite excited by that. And so, we tend to meet quite a lot of their clients.
Yeah. So go on then. Tell us exactly what it is you do in layman's terms, because not everybody is a pension tax specialist, especially on this show.
Sure. Okay, well, in really simple terms, what we do is we take a pension scheme that could be with someone's employer, it could be a private arrangement, it could be a combination of those things. And they'll turn around and say, look, I want to invest in property in whatever vehicle it is, whether it's they want to invest in commercial property or they want to do some development or they want to buy residential or, again, do a combination of things. What we do is, firstly, we'll help them restructure their pension, if they need to, into a type of pension scheme that will allow property investment. And then the second thing, which is the most important thing, and this is the unique thing, is that we create the holding vehicle that sits between the pension scheme and the property. And those are typically called genuinely diverse commercial vehicles. That's a HMRC term.
That's what the GDCV above your head stands for.
Yeah, I'm glad you're watching to pay notice. But yeah, so HMRC described those holding vehicles as genuinely diverse commercial vehicles, and that is fundamentally at the heart of what we do, creating and maintaining GDCVs to allow people to either borrow at a greater amount than their pension fund can, because pension funds have got very strict borrowing limits, GDCVs don't. Help them buy residential property, which is something that, again, a pension scheme can't do in its own right. Or if people want to trade properties, and by that I mean buy them and sell them quickly, i.e. flip, or if they want to undertake development to maintain the tax status of a pension scheme, a GDCV will help with that. And those are the three things that we spend most of our time helping people with.
Fantastic. And do you then work for the client directly, or do you work with other accountants? Because obviously not every accountant is going to have the vast knowledge that you've got.
Yeah, I mean, because what we do is so niche, I mean, it's very impactful, but it's so niche. We generally don't own the client relationship. So normally an accountant would come to us and say, look, okay, got someone that wants to do this. Do you have a tool to do the job? Great. How would that work? We've got standard application processes, and we work on an arm's length basis, preferably. But we always get clients that are inquisitive, or perhaps they don't want to necessarily take their accountant's word for it. They want to speak to the person behind the profile, and we're cool with that. I mean, the last call I had before here was a three-way Zoom call, just explaining what we do, because they just want to hear it out of our mouth that it's buried in the tax legislation. So I pointed the wrong way. Screen's back to front.
So that's all your tax legislation books behind you?
Well, those are the ones that I use the most. Yeah. So I'm normally sort of going through those like a Tasmanian devil, looking for answers and enlightenment.
And so you didn't wake up one morning and go, oh, I know what I'm going to be. So tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got here.
Yeah, do you know what? I think it's a really obvious one, but I started in pensions in 2001. I worked for 3 major multinational providers, and one of those in particular was very big, working with what are called small self-administered schemes. They have massive investment flexibility. So I started that in 2001, but I became a property investor myself in 2003. So naturally, I've always been very interested in property, always been doing it myself. Started my own tax practice in 2006. We picked up quite a lot of property investors because we were already in property. We still carried on doing pensions work, but we were a very generalist tax practice. And it's just that whole birds of a feather flock together thing. By 2019, we were doing bugger all in anything other than property. And we just decided to close the door and say, look, we're going to rebrand. We're not doing any more stamp duty work. We're not doing any more corporate work anymore. We're just going to do property and pensions. And all of the fears that people have when they niche down, everyone tells you it's a load of nonsense. You shouldn't be scared of niching, and they were proved absolutely correct. That as soon as people know exactly what hat to hang on you, it removes any confusion, and the rest is history.
Yeah, no, when I talk to people about niching, because I coach accountants and bookkeepers, I tell them the story about the dog groomer. So if you can imagine a networking meeting, so there's lots of different business owners there chatting away. If someone stood up in the room and said, hey, I'm a dog groomer, I don't know, 10, 15 people might do that. But if that person stood up and said, I groom Cocker Spaniels, then those people that have got a Cocker Spaniel are going to turn around and go, oh my goodness, I didn't realize there was such a thing. And they'll be more attentive. And I think that's the thing that you're doing with really, really niching down. And I'm busy working on that with my coach at the moment about what I do. And so, yeah, it's the time has come. So that's what I'm planning to do as well, because it just makes so much sense.
Yeah, agree wholeheartedly.
So you're proof in the pudding of that. So who is your typical client, James?
Well, I mean, our typical clients are the professionals that have clients that need our services, but the demographic of that is normally people that have got a trading business that is making a profit. They're probably disillusioned with mainstream financial services, so they don't seek out traditional independent financial advisors to get portfolios of shocks and scares. They normally like property where they can take control, they can choose the asset, they can manage it themselves, they can choose who the tenant is or who the tenant isn't, they can choose to refinance it, repurpose it. So they like the control of property. They also like the leverage that you can get from the banks to sort of amplify the returns from your portfolio if you get it right. So yeah, they're independently minded business people that don't necessarily trust the fact that they will definitely sell their business for a 7 or 8 figure sum in a few years' time, and so they're investing in property in a tax efficient way to kind of hedge against the negative outcome of potentially not being able to exit under the terms that they would wish.
Yeah, and in this country we love our property, don't we?
Oh yeah, massively. I don't know of any other country really that sort of leans into and embraces property ownership quite the same way as it does here. I was speaking to an internationally mobile Swede yesterday, as in the nationality, not the veg. But we were having a conversation about how if every country he's lived in, that there's nowhere where property ownership seems to be such a prevalent desire as in the UK. And also, I know that we deal with quite a lot of people that are involved in selling investments to overseas customers. We know there's a big appetite for that as well from overseas UK property ownership.
So somebody in a different country, one of their asset classes will be British property.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, I hadn't thought of that. Okay, so why do you think we've got this love affair with property, James?
I think it's tangible. It's registered on the land registry. You can physically go and touch it if you want to. You can insure it against a bad outcome. You can make money from the rental income. You can make money from capital growth. You can make money from both of those things. When they go up in value, you can pull some of that value out and in remortgage and go put it in something else. It's just that control, I think, that is real. I mean, again, most business owners don't like the idea that why would they take all this risk to make a load of money in business to then go and hand it over to a faceless fund manager, probably wearing red braces, and they're going to put it in Vodafone and BP. And the only real way that they can influence the outcome of how Vodafone is doing is by exercising their voting rights at the AGM. Well, they ain't going to do that because they're one of just, hundreds of thousands of voters potentially, that they're going for the tea and biscuit. But so I think it's ultimately the control that people can bring to bear over their property investments that people like.
Yeah, no, it makes an awful lot of sense, and I guess we've always aspired to own our own home, so that's something that really helps. So how many hours do you currently work in your business? Are you stressing out like a lot of accountants and bookkeepers I speak to, or is life pretty easy peasy for you? How does it all work?
I don't stress, but I work more than I should, and that's because I'm quite obsessive. I mean, when people sort of say, "Oh, get yourself down to 3 days a week," I'd love that, but then I'd be just bored, and so I try not to work for work's sake. That's for sure. But some weeks I'll tip 70, 80 hours, and I'll feel quite energized, and some weeks I'll do 40 and I'll feel knackered. So I think. I just I work just as long as I'm enjoying it generally.
You sound just like me. I look forward to coming in here. And do you work from home? Have you got an office?
No, I'm in the office at the moment. I mean, this office that I'm in at the moment is owned by my pension scheme, so I'm eating my own cooking. I mean, I do work at home, but I think sometimes having that divide as well. Just even when you've got a dedicated room at home, I'm banished to the cellar where we've got an office, but even having a dedicated room, it's still not quite the separation I want. So I'm fortunate enough, I'm 5 minutes from the office. I can get out, put that separation. No one's coming in. I'm not getting distracted, going to make a cup of coffee. I like it.
No, excellent. What advice have you got for someone thinking about investing in property in their pension?
Do you know what? I would seek out some specialist advice, because while the concept can seem quite straightforward, buy a property, rent it out, there are more pitfalls, and I think spending a bit of money on some specialist advice, whether that is someone to help you choose the investments, or dare I say, a little bit of good quality mentoring, it can make a massive difference. And because the cost, the cost to come to the table in terms of property is quite substantial. You and I, we can set up a trading platform for shocks and scares right now, stick 100 quid on, and we can be trading in a few minutes. But if we get that wrong, what have we lost? 100 quid. If you're sticking 30, 40, 50 grand into a property as a deposit, and you make a mistake with that, you can lose the shirt off your back. So, I see people doing that with quite speculative land deals sometimes. I just think, not for me that. Take your time, do your research, get good people around you.
And I think that's the same with all with all investments, isn't it? It's like you say, you could just go and buy some. You actually mean stocks and shares, I'm sure.
I meant shocks and scares, but it's quite deliberate. I just think that shocks and scares. The thing about investing in we'll call them main market investments as a retail customer, it can be quite a volatile ride. It's not for the faint-hearted, especially some people that they would have to have their portfolio on the side of their screen all day, and all they can see is like this sort of red when it goes down and green when it goes up, and they're constantly getting this sort of like adrenaline and dopamine and all this sort of stuff. It's too much, can't cope.
Yeah, no, makes an awful lot of sense. We've run out of time already. I don't know where that's gone. How can people get hold of you?
Well, LinkedIn, I think it'd be inappropriate to say anything
Brilliant.
else, but LinkedIn is my primary channel. As I say, I like it. It gives me what I need. I am on Facebook, not an active poster, other than in groups. I like to go in and answer questions to a point. Don't really give advice because that's negligent to do so. But my primary channel is LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook, and if it classes as social media, I can't avoid a WhatsApp. I'm prolific on there.
Fantastic. Now I've got one more question to ask you, but before I do that, I'm just going to go to my guest next week. Keeping it in the money theme, I've got Luca Karuna coming on to chat about his business and how he's a money coach. So we're going to have a good old chat with him. So looking forward to finding out a little bit more about that. So it's all on money at the moment. It's like waves, isn't it? So my final question then, James, what advice would you give your 16-year-old self?
Don't take yourself so seriously.
Boom. We do though, don't we? We
At 16,
do.
I did. At 16, I did, most definitely. But I thought I knew everything, and now I realise I know nothing.
No, but you know a little bit more than someone else, and then that is why we deal with you. So, James, you've been absolutely delight today. Thank you very much for all your help and advice, and thank you very much everybody for listening. And see you again soon.
Cheerio. Yeah, Ashley, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
No, you're more than welcome. You get out what you put